Good morning, and welcome to the Auckland Unitarian Church on this last Sunday in January 2018. And here's an interesting fact about this date that I found out yesterday. This happens to be the 450th anniversary of the Edict of Torda. Of how many of you forgot? Actually, it's fairly important because in Transylvania, it gave people following at least 4 different religious persuasions freedom of religion. And Unitarians were one of them. Isn't that grand? This group, our group here in Auckland, has been meeting fairly regularly since the middle 1860s. And in this church since December 1901. So last month we celebrated 116 years of working, living, worshiping in this building. My name is David Rohe, and my friend Vivian Allen and I are leading the service this morning. Part of my role in today's service is to give the talk. I hesitate to call it a sermon. To tell you the absolute truth, I really don't know why I needed to give this talk. I just know it seemed to be important at the time. It still does, to me. I will be reporting on a small piece of a personal journey, mine. It won't be a long report, so we get out a bit early this morning. And here is another oddity. Given the opportunity to talk about myself, I've kept it short. As I said, it means something to me. Whether it resonates anywhere else will be interesting to discover. Since my prepared remarks are not long, perhaps we can have time for some group discussion after. That'll be up to you, I suppose.
At times our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us.
It was last month, early December, in my 75th year, and something slipped. It was a Saturday, and I actually mentioned the situation to Clay at church the next day. So did Sharon. She also mentioned it to a few other people because she was worried about me. The responses I received were varied, mostly expressions of worry about my mental health and with a few, maybe we can talk about this sometime, type remarks. What happened that Saturday is fairly easily described and I suspect worth the telling here among friends and family. Why it happened is pure speculation. What happened is that I found myself in a unique situation in my life, one that was unexpected. Felt great, felt light, and scared the daylights out of Sharon. I literally began to not care about many, many things I had expended tons of energy on right up until that morning. Some of those things were the devastation inflicted upon U.S. society by the Trump administration. The fact that our house is still chaos following a move. The fact that I am officially obese. That life has apparently disallowed my ever again owning my own house. The shiny paints disappeared off my car. That's a partial list. I discovered when I started writing down this presentation. There's more, but I don't care to list them. So Sharon asked, "Don't you even care about yourself?" And I said, no. That was true at the time, in the midst of my euphoria, still partially true now, and probably the crux of her concern. She is not so worried now, and neither am I. Actually, I wasn't worried then, simply because I didn't care. Why? I bet you're asking yourselves, eh? I have only vague reasons. Some, I think, are true. The main one has to do with my father, a wondrously duty-bound man, raised during the Great Depression and who is my example of duty-first life. Much of my adolescence and young adult life, older adult life too, I disliked my father because he was an emotionally absentee parent. He did it on purpose, but that's a long story. My distaste for my father did not prevent me from acquiring much of the basic underpinnings of ethics and responsibility that he demonstrated. I value truth-telling, loyal relationships, fair play, all values absorbed from my father. However, here's an example of the level of duty-boundedness I experienced living with my dad. It comes from a conversation he had with my hell-raising brother, who was in high school at the time, and was a hell-raiser only in comparison to me, Mr. Goody Two-Shoes. Dad set Dan down. That's a hard series of words to say it real fast. Try it sometime. Dad sat Dan down and pointed out the finer points of a good and proper life. First, you get your education, get a good job, keep that job. Dad had a total of 3 different jobs in the 50-plus years of his professional employment. Get married once you can support yourself, and a family. Have that family, raise your kids to adulthood, and once they are out of the house and on their own, then you can start to have fun. In this sort of lifestyle, it is really hard to figure out what you really want to do, what you really feel, what is really important to you, to me. If your plan is laid out, your responsibilities preset, your life well organized to a certain pattern, then there are few decisions to be made. Duty takes precedence. You always come second or somewhere further down the priority scheme. I have paraphrased Dad's life talk with my brother Dan, but you get the picture. Another factor influencing my orientation to duty is that I am the oldest of 4. Birth order does matter. I had unstated responsibilities for the younger ones. My life seemed to revolve around caring about everything. Many of those items I could do little or nothing about, but caring about them was important. This sort of preset makes for a person who is a fairly effective rescuer of programs and people. Someone everyone can count on to be sure it gets done, whatever it is. I was, the perfect volunteer. Nothing escaped my care and concern. Nothing. Not U.S. politics, Auckland Unitarian Church, congregation size and budget, interpersonal relationships amongst my children, birth and acquired, whether there is enough tables for the church's Christmas shared meal and how they are arranged. Where do we put all this stuff Sharon and I have acquired and is still in boxes in our house? And on and on and on. I can be a fairly happy fellow, but after a while, carrying this basket of duties gets difficult. So I had a little break that Saturday and decided to put my basket down. The next day, Sunday, was one of the best days of my life. After my wedding day to Sharon, because I literally did not care about anything. If it was broken, I had no interest in trying to fix it. I was a religious convert to the first church of carelessness. Ever met a religious convert? They typically seem most interested in helping you along the conversion path. But this new church I had discovered had the opposite effect, simply because I didn't care. There are a few aspects of this story that still need explanation or pointing out. First, I still have no idea why I needed to tell you all this, but it seemed important. And many of us are friends, so I thought I ought to share. Second, Sharon may have had good reason for concern because I suspect there is an element of depression involved in the urge to not care. So, am I depressed? I got to tell you that shedding my sack of burdens felt too good to worry about whether I fit the description of clinical depression. And besides, I didn't care. Third, my early epiphany, January 6th was still a month away, produced great feelings of lightness and obviously a strong emotional response in me, resulting in my initial reaction being typically overblown, as are most strong emotional reactions, religious conversions. Initially, I felt I did not care about anything, as in anything. That's what probably freaked Sharon a bit, but a short conversation with my buddy, Mike Allwright, the Salvation Army officer who spoke here recently, was illuminating. He simply said, "You mean you don't have to care?" Let that sink in for a minute. Whether I care about something is up to me. It's not all preset. It's not all a given. Wow, it's true. It's obvious. It's simple, as are most really important revelations. So, what do I do as a result of that understanding? I start the process of making decisions about letting stuff into my first church of carelessness. I'm still sorting. How do I decide what goes in and what stays? I don't know. Life has suddenly gotten a lot simpler and much more complicated. My current reactions to situations, conditions, semi-emergent happenings probably fall into several diagnostic categories, such as defensive reaction, passive aggression, depressive response, rational prioritization, whatever. You know what? As far as investigating the deeper motivations behind my choices, actually, I'll leave you with this phrase that has become more meaningful to me in life. Those with the most choices are the most free. But freedom's not a benign asset. With all these choices, you still got to choose. Making the necessary choices means you got to care. Oops. Time to take a rest. Amen. Epiphanies are not the end of things, but the beginning. For me, at 75, damn close to 76, it's a gift, wondering what the future will bring. Amen. Thank you very much.